morning. Welcome to episode 3 of Coffee and Crochet with Karen. I'm your host, Karen Whooley. So glad you're here this Wednesday morning. We have been having such wonderful weather here in South Central Washington State. It's been cold in the mornings, sunny in the afternoons. We've had a little bit of rain, but for the most part, it's been beautiful in the 60s. So that's been really exciting. I'm trying a different way of recording this time. I'm using a different software. I'm hoping we won't have the fuzziness problems we had last week. Apologize for that. I had no idea it was happening until I started editing the podcast, and that's when it all started. Before we get into our first topic here for this week, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for being here. Thanks for commenting. And also don't forget to, if you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and the thumbs up. And that way I know that you are enjoying this podcast. Okay, so our first topic is we are going to talk about last week's comments. I'm going to mix it up a little this week. I'm going to start with your comments. Okay, so I had a lot of you who really were excited about this crew neck and V-neck question I had. And I just wanted to let you know that the V-neck actually edged out the crew necks by 1 vote. So I'm still kind of up in the air what I'm going to be doing with that sweater. I'm going to show it to you later. I've already got part of the body started, so stay tuned for that. But I wanted to read some of the comments here that I got about this. Brat's mom 6749 said, I like crew necks. And she agreed with Carlene that the lace edging would be beautiful on a sweater. And that is about the Spooky Web pattern that is on my website. That was the new pattern this week. The sale ended yesterday, Tuesday. So if you haven't gotten it, it's at the regular price now. But she was also talking about Frances. Frances was the one who mentioned the lace for the sweater. Okay, let's talk about the next one was from Renee Bryant 9288. Hi Renee, I'm glad you were watching. I like crew necks also. Thanks for the refresher on swatching. Great information on that topic. I am so glad you said that because swatching is one of the most important things you can do as a crocheter, especially when you're making garments. And one of the things I'm going to be working on in the next year are several garments. I have a list of garments that I want to get done. So you're going to be seeing a lot of garments. I'm going to be talking about a lot of swatching in the future. So I'm so glad that you said that was great information. Carlene Roberts 6002. Hi, Carlene. I'm usually drawn to V-neck tops. I agree with Frances about the edging working well on a sweater. I also love them as the hem of a crochet skirt or dress. Yes. Actually, after I recorded the podcast, I was honestly thinking about how that would be really cool on the edge of a skirt. And that's something else I want to design sometime this year is another skirt pattern. So you might be seeing that as well. Okay, let's see who's next. Pat H10178. Crew neck, please. Going to try Spooky Web shawl as I'm starting to crochet using fingering weight yarn. We shall see how it goes. Pat, I really think you're going to be just fine. It's a very simple pattern. It looks larger, or it looks more complicated, I should say, not larger. Looks more complicated because you're using fingering weight yarn. But fingering weight yarn, it just takes a few rows or rounds, depending on what type of project you're doing, to get used to going from like a worsted weight or even a DK down to a fingering. But you should be able to do it no problem. I totally know you can. And make sure you share pictures with me too. And that's true with everybody. If you are working one of my patterns and you have finished it and blocked it, send me a picture. I love seeing what your representations of my patterns look like, especially your yarn choices. If you changed anything, I love to see that. So definitely send me pictures. Michelle 3649 says, I'm going against the grain here, but I prefer V-necks. Enjoying your podcast. Thanks. Michelle, you're not going against the grain. You're probably the vote that put us over the edge for the V-neck. So there you go. Beach Girl 7598 says, on a cardigan, I like a crew neck. On a sweater, I like a V-neck. And honestly, that's kind of what I've heard from a few people here. Cardigans, I tend to design a lot of my cardigans with the crew neck. I do have one pattern that's not in my catalog right now. If you go onto Ravelry, you'll see it, but you'll see that the pattern's no longer available. I'm trying to think of what the name of it is now. It's been so long and it's been out of my catalog for so long, I cannot think of it, but it uses the crocodile stitch. So if you just kind of go through it, you'll find it. And that one's a V-neck, and everybody loves that one. And I also have one, I think my pineapple cardigan is also a V-neck now that I think about it, in my Pineapple Passion book. You can see that on Ravelry as well, or you can go to my website at KarenWhooley.com. I forgot to mention that earlier. My website is KarenWhooley.com. And if you look up in my books section, the Pineapple Passion book, you'll see the pineapple cardi there as well. And I believe that is a V-neck. So, but I do tend to do more crew necks than I do for V-necks. So we'll see what happens with this one. Crystal M. Crater says, I enjoy both neck styles depending on my mood. I'm guilty of not always swatching. Although I did try for latest project, I'll try to take it more seriously in the future. Yay, thanks for reading out my comment. You're so welcome. I love to read as many comments as I can. I'm working on the Forbidden Fiber Co's Clue project currently. It has been so much fun. I'm super excited for the 12 Days of the Renaissance too. Thanks for another great episode, Karen. You are so welcome, Crystal. I just want to let everybody know that I just checked as of yesterday. I haven't checked today yet, but as of yesterday, the 12 Days of the Resistance kit is still available on the Forbidden Fibers website. I'll make sure I get that link in the show notes, so make sure you check that out. And for those of you, so many of you commented about how we're guilty of not swatching. Now, there's certain things you don't have to swatch as readily as others, but the most important thing is that when you're working something that is fitted to a body or to around something else, like I mentioned the legs eggs last week, that you swatch. The other thing too is that if you're limited on yarn, that's an important time to swatch as well. I didn't mention that last week, but for example, if you buy one of my patterns that's a 2-hank shawl and you're finding that you're running out of yarn, your gauge is probably off. So if you have the yardage, because I always add 10% to my figures in the materials list of what yarn what the yardage is that I used. So if I say 1,028 yards, that's adding 10%. So if you have 1,028 yards and you're running out, that means your gauge is off somewhere. So and you don't have a way to get the yarn. That's so important too. So just wanted to make sure I mentioned that before I forget. Okay, so let's see. SK Hoyt 6024, catching up on your podcasts and enjoying them. I like V-neck on a cardigan because it lays nicely when you don't button it. One of these days, I'm going to try crocheting socks. I've only knit them so far. I agree with Sharon. This is Sharon. Hi, Sharon. I'm so glad you're catching up. I agree with the V-necks laying nicely. I don't know if you've ever noticed with crochet knit cardigans, even store-bought cardigans, that if you don't button that top button, one side tends to want to flop this way and the other side wants to flop this way. I truly, truly agree with that comment. So that's another pro V-neck for your cardigans if you like to leave them open. Marie Beauregard, 1063. Hi, Marie. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for weighing in. Oh, that was my response to her. I thanked her for weighing in. I thanked all of you for weighing in. But she prefers the V-neck also. And then Frances says that cardi is either V or crew neck. Jerseys or sweaters, I prefer V-neck. Gosh, Karen, using that swear word, swatch. Swatch is a naughty word. I think I've only knitted a swatch once and never in crochet. I'll try to be good and try it one day. So Francis, you are not alone. Everybody thinks that swatch is a swear word, and a nasty word, especially crocheters. Knitters seem to be a little more willing to do swatches. And one of the things I always recommend with swatches, and I think I mentioned this last week too, is that you always want to make it a little bit bigger than what so if you're measuring 4 inches, you always want to make it at least 6 inches, both directions, to make sure your swatch is getting your gauge correct. But honestly, guys, blankets you really don't need to swatch unless you are limited on yarn. You don't have to swatch a shawl usually unless you're limited on yarn. But if you want the exact size that the final project is, swatching is so important. So make sure you do that next time you work on a pattern. Okay, so let's go to our next thing, and that is what is new in the shop. Okay, so I'm just going to throw out a reminder for you guys. This is Socktober, and in Socktober, we celebrate everything about socks. And if you haven't been by my blog lately, I just posted another blog post on actually calculating gauge, which is kind of interesting, for socks. So make sure you check out my blog and check out that new blog post. I'm really excited about that one. And then also remember about socks is that all of my sock patterns and my sock book that is listed on my website, Crochet Rock Socks, are all 15% off this month. So you have another couple weeks to get that 15% off on any of my sock patterns and the Crochet Rock Socks book. So make sure you check that out. You don't need a coupon for that. I have that automatically deducted. In fact, if you go onto the sock page in my pattern section, you'll see that every single sock pattern says sale on it. And if you go into the book page, Crochet Rock Socks shows on sale as well. Unfortunately, excuse me, all my other books on socks, well, actually there's only one other book on socks called I Can't Believe I'm Crocheting Socks, as published by Leisure Arts. That's not on sale. I have no control over that. So, but you can go to the Leisure Arts website, and I'll make sure I link that as well here so that you can check out that book and make sure you purchase it if it's something you're interested in. That sock book actually from Leisure Arts walks you through all the parts of the sock as well. Crochet Rock Socks is just literally 7 patterns for socks. So if you are looking for just a single pattern walking you through socks, I recommend my mix and match socks. I have one that's cuff down. And if you're brand new to socks, I always recommend cuff down first. I also have a toe up mix and match. Toe up, the reason I don't recommend that the first socks that you ever make is because the toe, when you're working toe up, is so different that a lot of people don't trust the pattern. And I always tell everybody, you have to trust that pattern. It's tried and true. I've done it with all of the sizes and it never fails me, but it's so counterintuitive to what you are used to. Excuse me guys, I'm losing my voice. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. Hang on a sec. Okay, it's so counterintuitive to what you're used to, especially using stitch markers. It confuses everyone, and that's why even when I teach this class on socks, I teach toe up separately from cuff down, because that toe is what confuses everyone. And I'm hoping at the beginning of the year, sometime probably in the first quarter, I'll be releasing a Watch As You Go crochet sock series, or class actually, at your own pace kind of thing. Basically what I'm going to do is do a cuff down class, and then I'll have like an additional class that'll be toe up, because a lot of the things are the same. It's that toe and the heel that get everybody on toe up, and I want to just clarify that for everyone. So that's all about socks. I give you a little more information than I was planning to, but that's okay if you have some things to look forward to in 2024. So the other new thing in the shop right now is I have a virtual class that's going to be happening on November 3rd, 2023. It's a class that has been asked for by a ton of people because I don't even know how else to describe it. The class is called Laying the Foundation, Laying the Groundwork Foundation Stitches. And a lot of you know how to do the single crochet foundation, the double crochet foundation, the triple crochet foundation, half double crochet foundation, just making stitches in a row so that when you're starting something like a sweater, which I'm going to show you in a minute, I use the double crochet foundation because it's a solid double crochet at the bottom. But what you don't know how to do are things like this. And I'm going to make sure I've got this right side up before there we go. So like this is a granny stitch foundation. See how I've got the chain ones in between. This is done as same way, foundation stitches. Here is the V-stitch foundations. Oh, I got that backwards. The V-stitch foundation. Here is a sample of like a filet crochet. I'm also going to be showing you how to do an eyelet foundation. I'm going to be showing a couple other things that hopefully, as long as time permits in the class, that I will show maybe how to do a shell stitch, how to do, other things. This is a live virtual class. It's going to be on Zoom. It's a 3-hour class. It starts at 9 a.m. Pacific. One second. Oh, I have this frog in my throat. Okay, so 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 noon Eastern on Friday, November 3rd. All of the details are on my website. I'm going to put a link in the show notes here, but I also wanted to mention that it's right now until the 21st, the morning of the 21st, which is this coming Saturday. The price is down to $75 for the 3-hour class. On Saturday, it's going to jump up to its regular price of $125 for the virtual class. So if you're interested in taking that class, make sure you jump on it. There's limited spots. I'm only going to take up to 15, I believe, is what I have listed in the listing. I'm finding that teaching Zoom classes like this tend to be harder if I have more than 12, 15 people in the class. So I'm limiting it this time. If this doesn't work, I will be offering it again. And one feature I should mention about this class is when you've paid for it, after the class is over, you will have 45 days of being able to rewatch the entire class. I will have it recorded and you'll have 45 days to watch it again. This is not one of those classes that I like to keep up on in perpetuity because every class is different. And I want to be able to upload the class for the current students who take the class. So 45 days usually seems to be the longest that I can do it. But right now it's at $75 for the 3-hour class. It'll jump to $125 on Saturday. So make sure you take advantage of that deal right now. It's $50 off the class. So let's talk about what's new in the studio. All right, so this has been a busy week as far as yarn acquisition in the studio. It's kind of funny. It's like all of the things are happening right now. New projects that I'm doing, projects that have been sitting on the back burner, and I realized, oh my goodness, I got to get this done. The baby's going to be born, kind of thing. So first, I want to show you episode 1, I showed you the Seattle Doodle Deck. I should probably pull that. I have that right here. The Seattle Doodle Deck. This has got all sorts of patterns that are Seattle related. It's made for knitters, but I'm going to do a crocheted scarf using Sasquatch. For those of you who don't know Sasquatch, he's also known as the Yeti. He's known as Bigfoot. Here in Washington, he's huge. Everybody talks about Bigfoot. In fact, we have a yarn dyer here locally called Bigfoot Yarn. I think it's Bigfoot Yarn. There's Bigfoot Fiber Company and there's Bigfoot Yarns. And I believe Bigfoot Yarns is the Washington one. But anyway, so my daughter saw that and she said, I want a Sasquatch scarf. So hopefully she's not watching this. I bought yarn this weekend. I was babysitting my grandson. We needed to get out of the house. So my husband and I took him to Paradise Fibers. And if you've never heard of Paradise Fibers, if you're ever in Spokane, you have to go. Paradise Fibers, I thought when I was living on the west side of the state, was just a mail order company. And they are known for all their fibers. They have, weaving equipment, spinning wheels, crochet hooks, knitting needles, all the stuff. You can buy online. In fact, I used to buy stuff from them online. And then a few years before I moved, I realized they actually have a retail store. And this is my second time there. First time was when my daughter was in the hospital having my grandson, and I needed a break. So I went to go see the shop. The shop is amazing. It's huge. It is huge. And you've got all the yarns. But anyway, for this scarf, I've got Barocco Vintage. And in this one is, it's 52% acrylic, 40% wool, and 8% nylon. And it is one of the softest yarns in worsted weight that I've ever worked with. I've worked with this before in other patterns. But for this, this is the background color. And then the brown is the Sasquatch. Same yarn, vintage. I don't have a color name on here. I don't have color names on here, but this one is kind of an off-white eggshell color, and this is a really deep brown. So that you'll be seeing that soon on my hook. I'm going to try it crocheted first, and if it doesn't turn out the way I want it to, I will definitely be switching to knitting on this, but I just wanted to show you that I got the yarn for that. Oops, I want the brown in the middle. There we go. So there you go. So that's one of the new products in the studio. And this one's I'm going to show you this one first. Of course, I brought my grandson, so he is like playing with this one one skein of this yarn. This is new West Yorkshire Spinners Elements yarn. It's brand new. It's a DK weight yarn. It was brand new to Paradise Fibers. I got the first yarn skeins actually off the shelf. This is, I'm going to read this. It's 60% lyocell and 40% Falkland Islands wool. And this colorway is Golden Sands. I'm going to show you a skein that's not all destroyed. I just had to show you that because my grandson was playing with that. In fact, I have a picture of him like with it in his mouth, but that's okay. This is actually going to be for a sweater for my grandson for Christmas. Last year I made him a sweater and he only wore it for about a month and outgrew it. So this one's going to be a couple sizes bigger than what he is now. So I'm thinking maybe even 3 sizes bigger. So about enough yarn to be able to make him a sweater. You'll be seeing that pretty soon on my hook as well. Okay, so that's that. And then yesterday I realized, oh my goodness, I have 2 nieces who are having babies. One is actually going to be induced next month. I have about 3 weeks until she's induced. 2 weeks, 3 weeks till she's induced, and I have not started anything. And I'm going to show you her blanket because I actually started it last night. But my other niece is due in March, so I figured if I was buying one's yarn, I was going to buy the other. And the yarn I always use for my nieces and nephews is Red Heart. And I didn't pull it out, so I need to pull it out right now. Here we go. So this is for the niece who's due in March. This is a Super Saver from Red Heart in the color just straight up blue. She's having a boy, and I always like to do, and the blues for her because I know she likes those. This is her 3rd boy, so she's used to the blankets I get. It's going to have a white stripe in it. So I already have a lot of white, so I didn't buy the white, but I do have the blue for her blanket. And I'll show you the other blanket in a little bit. Okay, so that is one of the things I bought. Now the other thing I bought, I love sugar and cream. I was at Michael's when I went to the store. And Michael's looks like they're closing out their sugars and cream. There were only 2 of these. I bought both white. And then they have their own loops and threads cotton. And this is Christmas. So I'm going to be making some dishcloths on the double with the double-ended crochet hook using these because my husband likes my crocheted dishcloths. So I'm going to make him a couple Christmas ones for the kitchen for the holidays. So I got 2 of each of these for that. But then also I have a project coming in November. You can probably figure this out by the colors. This is very, Thanksgiving colors. Some of these are sugar and cream. Others are the loops and threads. I'm not going to tell you what this project is because I want it to be something that you see when I launch it. It's going to be a pattern that you can do yourself as well, all done in cotton. But I wanted to get the yarn while I was there. And the cool thing right now is Michael's has all their yarn 30% off. So I got two skeins of the red heart in the blue, 2 skeins of the green that I got for my the one I'm going to show you here in a second, and then for 8 of these for less than $30. So they're having 30% off. It's great. So if you need any box store yarns, I recommend going to Michael's or Whooleygan because they have everything right now. Okay, let's talk projects. So I'm going to show you this one first. This is the blanket for my other niece. I'm also using Red Heart Super Saver, but she is an Oregon duck, so is my nephew. My nephew is my husband's sister's son, and it's his wife who's pregnant, and they're Oregon ducks, and so this is the blanket I've started for them. This actually is going to be a blanket I'm going to be releasing next year. In fact, this is going to be a blanket that has video attached to it. So I just wanted to show you, this is the start. I should have it finished by tomorrow night. This is probably the simplest pattern that you'll ever make. I call it the weekend baby blanket because you can literally make this in a weekend. Doesn't matter how fast you crochet. This is actually, for me, this was 2.5 hours of crochet time last night watching TV. I'll probably have a little bit more tonight, so I'll probably get farther along. It's a fun, easy blanket. It uses V-stitch and double crochets, and it's got a cool little edging, but I definitely had to do the green for them. This is their second son as well, and Ryder got one that was green and yellow, so this one's going to get the green and white. So I'm very excited to get that one done for them. And I know neither of my nieces watch my videos. At least I don't think so. If they do, they better check in. But yeah, so that's that one. So now I want to show you the sweater I'm working on. And I showed you, this is with the Forbidden Fibers, her Fortitude base. In fact, I need to wind another hank here. But here is the partial back of the sweater. Where you're seeing these, oops, wrong side. Where you're seeing these stitch markers, that's where I'm doing some decreases. So the hips are going to be a little narrower than the bust line. I'm sorry, reverse that. The hips are going to be a little wider than the bust line. The gauge on this is, the gauge is pretty standard for me. It's 5 1/4 stitches per inch. That's just kind of where my gauge is with fingering weight yarn. But the actual sizing is 6 inches to 10 inches of ease in the sweater. I like my cardigans a little looser, so that's what we're going to be doing with this one. However, that doesn't mean you have to make your cardigan looser. If you like a more fitted cardigan, you can jump down a size or 2 based on the measurements of the finished measurements and make it fit you. So I'm going to fold that in half so you can see the color. What I really love about this yarn, I can't even get over it, is that black overtone that you can see, or see how it's mostly pomegranate color, but then every once in a while you've got the black coming through here. I just absolutely adore that. So I cannot wait to get the fronts done and see how it's all going to look put together. This is so much fun. I'm having a great time with this. I've been working on this since Saturday. Started it on the drive up to visit, or actually Friday afternoon. We drove up to babysit my grandson, and so it's 2.5 hours there and then 2.5 hours back. And I did a little bit while I was there, but not much. And it was broken up with little, stops along the way, but that's what is that one. And then I'm going to show you my sock. that I'm working on, and this got put on hold a little bit. I'm going to probably get back to it tomorrow because I need to do the gusset, but there is the setup. You can see that I finished the heel flap and I've started the first round around the entire foot here to do the gusset. So all those stitch markers are markers to show where I decrease. The gold one is the beginning of round, so I know where the beginning of the round is. And that'll be, next week you should see a lot more of this sock done. So it's just, you know, you start working on a new project. How many of you guys do this? Where you've started working on a project and then something comes up like that blanket, and you put the project aside and you start working on something else, the new blanket in my case. And I've also got the sweater going because I promised to get that sweater done before the end of the year for my testers. So yeah, so this is where I'm at. And then the one that's really gotten put behind is this one, which is my son's fingerless mitts. I've shown you guys this before. I had to rip out the fingerless mitts because I forgot to do the increases for the thumb gusset. So now the thumb gusset's there. The next round, I'm ready to pick up and hold those stitches on a waste yarn so that I can just work up the hand portion. Here's the original. The other hand is done right here. So I am right about here where my finger is, because you add a little bit for the thumb, but that's where my finger is. And then I need to do all of this, which is not going to take me that long. I just want to get that blanket done first because this one I can probably get to him at Thanksgiving and it won't be a problem. So those are my projects. I have 4 of them. I didn't realize I have 4 of them. That is unheard of for me. Usually it's 2. So having 4 projects kind of stresses me out. And so guys, this is a question for all of you. Post in the comments for me. How many projects do you have? And if you have more than those, the number of projects that you're comfortable with, does it stress you out or do you not care? So tell me what you are comfortable with. Tell me maybe how many projects you have right now. Tell me how many projects you're comfortable with. And tell me how many stresses you out. So for me, anything more than 2 stresses me out. So that's why I got to get that blanket done, and I've got to get that those fingerless mitts done. And then I'm going to be smooth sailing. But let me know what your thoughts are. Please leave me a comment on that. I'd really, 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 really want to know what you guys think about that. Okay, let's move on to our topic of the week. Okay, so topic of the week are our hands, taking care of our hands. And the reason this topic came up for me this week is because I don't know if I've mentioned this in any of my live streams, or not live streams, my Crochet Crew video streams, my Zoom calls. But for those of you who aren't a part of my Crochet Crew, I am in physical therapy for an issue with my lumbar. It's nothing major. It's not like I have to have surgery or anything like that, but I've been having this issue where things are like pinching in my back, especially when I'm standing at my desk. I got a standing desk on purpose. Here we go again. Okay. So I'm so sorry, guys. I got a standing desk on purpose because I had been sitting way too much between all my crochet time, all my computer time. There's just been too much standing. There's too much sitting. So I got a standing desk. And for the first few months, the standing desk has been great. I've been able to go up and down as I need to. So there's certain things that I can't do on a computer if I'm not sitting. So I can stand for the most part, but I do sit a lot too. And then all of a sudden I started having these pains where my back was bugging me. So I started physical therapy for that. Well, then last week at physical therapy, one of the things I mentioned to him is that I had been losing my grip, like opening jars. Like for my husband's birthday party 2 weeks ago, almost 2 weeks ago, I couldn't open jars. I was getting shooting pains here, and these 2 fingers were tingling. And so I was thinking carpal tunnel. Well, after doing a bunch of testing, they found that right here on my wrist, right there, I'm numb. And after doing some, movements and stuff like that, what they realized is it's how I hold my crochet hook. When I'm crocheting, if you'll notice, see how my hand wrist is down, and that's causing some pinching in here, and that's what's doing this. That's what's losing my grip, and all that kind of stuff. So one thing that I do right is that every 45 minutes I stop, take a break for at least 5 minutes, especially if I'm doing a long crochet, like if I'm like that blanket, I'm working it while I'm watching TV. So after every episode of whatever I'm watching, because usually it's a 45-minute thing, but now that everything's streaming, you get 45 minutes. So I take a break for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, let it relax, drink some water, do all the things, get up if I need to, and then come back and crochet. So that's the one good thing. But the other good thing is that I have all these exercises now that I have to do. So I'm doing them right here for you. So this is actually, I'm doing it with both hands so that the other hand doesn't get, this hand doesn't get stronger than this hand. I want to keep both hands in motion. So I have all these little exercises I have to do. I have places that if I start to feel numb, he showed me some pressure points to push on and massage to try to get rid of the tingling, that kind of thing. It doesn't hurt when I crochet. In fact, crocheting helps it. So it's so important that we talk about our hands. So do any of you have problems with your hands? I'd love to hear in the comments. Make sure you talk about that. Let me know if you've had physical therapy, if you use any sort of glove, if you find that a certain hook hold causes you issues, if you've had to adjust how you crochet in the past. I'd love to hear about that. For me, I think I've told the story before. I don't know that I've done it on this podcast, but when my grandmother was teaching me how to crochet, I had to do the pencil hold. I had to crochet like this or else. But I am naturally a knife holder, and so I crochet like this for the most part. But the fact that she forced me to learn this way, even though I'm so much slower crocheting like this, swapping back and forth between these two is another thing I do to help with any issues in my wrist. So I might do a half hour this way, and I might do a half hour this way. It's so important that you learn both holds. If you just can't, because I know there's a lot of people who are pencil holders and this is just so foreign, it bothers their hand underneath. I know there's a lot of you out there. A couple of you in my crochet crew have even mentioned it. So if you cannot do that, take a 10 to 15 minute break every 30 to 45 minutes. That is so crucial in taking care of your hands. If I also do a lot of lotion, especially at night before I go to bed. I wear massaging gloves, especially in the winter because my hands get so dry anyway. But massaging gloves, I don't do them so much in the summer because it's just too hot. But massaging with lotion every night, it helps a lot. Knowing where to rub. They told me to push, today he told me to push right here if I have some issues with my hands. But my problem is mostly with my grip, opening jars, lifting my purse. In fact, he recommended getting a different kind of purse, so I had to do that because my purse was too big and too heavy. So I've gotten a new purse, and that seems to be helping a little bit too. Ever since he pretty much diagnosed me with this little issue, I have had almost no problems between doing the exercises, doing the practice lifting that he has me do, keeping my wrist neutral. That's another thing too, is that if you have any issues in your wrist, see if you can find some exercises. Like mine is picking up a dumbbell. I don't have one here. I thought I had one in here. And just keeping my wrist neutral and just doing this and allowing my hand to sit at a neutral position. That has helped a lot too. I've noticed this part of my arm getting stronger too. So just a couple little tips. take care of your hands because you want to be able to crochet as long as possible. So honestly, if anybody has any tips on taking care of your hands, put them in the comments section. I'd love to read them off next week. So let me know. I'd love to do that. Okay, well, one last thing. Let's talk about stories. So today's story actually comes from Frances. I only read part of her comment earlier. I wanted to read this last part as part of the stories, crochet stories. Last week we were talking about, or somebody had commented, I should say, on how they learned to crochet was that an aging woman that she was bringing Meals on Wheels to invited her to come back and learn how to crochet. And so Frances actually had a little story here I want to read. And it says, I worked in aged care, blessed to have about 20 people that I supervise in a designated area in the rest home who need constant monitoring. The residents always want to know what's on my hook or needles, even when their hands or dementia stop their ability to create with their... I gotta reread that. The residents always want to know what is on my hook or needles, even when their hands or dementia stop their ability to create with yarn. They still enjoy watching projects develop. One lady has no communication anymore, but her eyes light up when I pull out my craft bag to show the progress, and her fingers seem to trace the textures when I place it in her hand. Isn't that amazing? I mean, my mom had dementia, okay, before she passed away this summer. And I did notice that with her, that if I put something in her hands, I mean, she recognized me, she could talk to me, but she didn't always understand. But if I put something in her hands, it could even be a photograph of my kids or my phone with a picture of my kids, she would recognize them and talk about them. But I just find it fascinating. This woman cannot communicate at all, but as soon as you put the project in her hands, she knows what she's touching. It's apparent, by the way she's feeling the texture, how her eyes light up when Frances pulls out the project. Frances, you're giving me chills right now. I'm sorry, guys. This is just, I think that being a part of the fiber industry in ways like this is so important. I mean, sharing what you're doing with those who can no longer do things anymore or who want to see what you're doing. And that's not just the elderly and the aged. I'm thinking even kids. I mean, my grandson, when I'm crocheting, he stops and watches me. I mean, he's only 16 months old, but so his attention isn't there, but he watches what I'm doing and he finds it interesting. So I thank you, Frances, for sharing that with us. It gave me chills the first time I read it. I'm like getting chills right now talking about it. It's so important. So being a crocheter and or a knitter, make sure that you share with your family, share with people. If you're crocheting in public, when someone comes up and asks you something, be sure to share your craft. It's so important to keep it alive. Even in those people who can no longer do it anymore. I know that my grandmother, who taught me to crochet, she could do the stitches, but after a while she couldn't do them anymore. And so as I was growing older, I was 25 when she passed away. She taught me when I was 7. So as I was growing older, a lot of times she wouldn't be able to take the hook and show me something different, but she could tell me in words how to do it. Or she would take my wrist, I still remember, and this is where you want to go, that kind of thing. So, or she wanted to see my projects. In fact, when she got ill with lymphoma, I made her a pair of slippers that she would only wear at home when she wasn't at the hospital. But she absolutely adored them. And they went on her feet because it was something that I made for her, first of all, but then also it was something that she was close to. I mean, she was very tactile. She was a sewer. She was a knitter. She was a crocheter. She was a cook. She was an amazing woman. And the fact that I was doing something that she was, she had taught me and she could no longer do, she enjoyed me coming around and talking to her about it or showing her what I was working on. So that was so important in my life. And I can just imagine this woman that Frances takes care of, how excited she gets, even though she cannot verbally tell Frances what's going on. So Frances, thank you so much for sharing that story. Anybody else has a story like that? Or any sort of crochet story, knit story, something you would like to share? I would like to have a story from somebody. It could be something short like this. I mean, Frances only gave me like 4 sentences. It doesn't have to be a big, long thing, but just send me a story. You can email me at comments@KarenWhooley.com. I'll make sure that's in the show notes. Also, you can post them here in the comments if you're more comfortable that way, however you want to do it. But please, 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 please send me some stories. Okay, that's it for this week, guys. I just want to check my list and make sure that's all I've got. But this week, that's all. I hope you guys have a great week. I should have a lot more projects to show you, some new things in the studio, hopefully. And I will talk to you next time. Make sure that you hit subscribe and the thumbs up button to let everybody know that this is a great podcast and that you're enjoying it, especially me. I need to know that you guys are enjoying this. So I would really appreciate a subscribe and a thumbs up. Anyway, have a blessed, blessed, blessed week, and I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.